because that thing's going to work you, and it's supposed to. It's not a bad thing. It's just karmas coming alive, working their course. And that means if we can navigate them with some awareness, and when I say awareness, though, I'm also feeling compassion. Awareness, compassion, and wisdom have to always come hand in hand, because if there's a lot of awareness there without compassion, that can be really difficult. You know what I mean? Where you're seeing all your faults, so-called faults, or mistakes, or the things that you feel like you're doing lousy, or you feel like you failed, or the things you feel guilty about. All these things can come to the surface. And so if the compassion is equal with the awareness, then when you feel guilty, then you also feel love to go along with that guilt. You'll feel compassion to go along with that guilt, because to feel guilty is a certain, type of suffering. And whenever suffering arises, also here comes the love, here comes compassion. But when eclipses come around, you just never quite know. But in life, you never quite know. So I don't want to put too much emphasis on just eclipses, but eclipses do teach us, I think, about life, and do help us and become kind of like trigger points in the seasons of our life. We have seasons like summer, winter, spring, fall. But then we have, each of us have our own seasons of our life. And astrology tracks those in various ways via transits of big planets in the sky that move very slowly, such as Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter takes about 12 years to get around the entire zodiac, where the moon does it once a month. And Saturn, it takes over 27 years. And so when Saturn is transiting Capricorn, which it has been for the last, close to 2.5 years, more or less, then that's a season of everybody's life. But it's going to be a little bit unique for you versus me, because each of our own natal charts are different. So what is Capricorn? What house of the zodiac does Capricorn fall in my horoscope will be different than yours. And I thought she was going to tell us something helpful. So if Capricorn is in a different house of the zodiac in your chart than is mine, then that Saturn, having been there for the last 2.5 years, is going to be very much impacting a different domain of your life than it is mine. But then there's just generally Saturn and Capricorn affecting all of us in a similar way, which is we've all gone through a shared experience, say, in this pandemic. It's a really fascinating human experience that nobody living has any kind of precedent for, that we can look at and say, oh, the last time all of this happened, in an age where everything was just highly connected like it is now. In this current age, everything is so tremendously connected. So that's strong energy, and we're still learning how to deal with it as human beings, and how does our nervous systems adapt to it, of always having our fucking phones in our hands. This is how we are. We're not demonizing it. This is what it is. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be wise and have moderation, but also it's like this is happening. And technology is not negative, and technology is not positive. It's what we do with everything is what will make it eventually positive or negative. So it's not. So in this type of yogic way of looking at things, there's not really so much of this is good and this is bad. This is auspicious and this is inauspicious. In this type of tantric view, everything becomes something that is medicine. And yet, just as we know from the great Ayurvedic principles, is that the strongest poison, if it can be made to be medicine, becomes the most potent, best medicine. This is why, for instance, use of mercury was used in ancient Ayurveda. They knew how to turn mercury, which is a poison, into via alchemy, turn it into some of the best rejuvenative medicine, longevity medicine. So it's very cool. And this is what we do with the emotions and the experiences of our life. So when you use eclipse energy from a yogic context, now you're becoming like an alchemist. And the alchemy you're working with is the earth, water, fire, air, space elements of the human mind and body, and how the prana flows through the chakras. Root, Muladhara chakra, Saturn, earth element. It's your sense of security, your sense of feeling safe in your body and safe in the earth, even when there's eclipse happening. Second chakra, water element, Jupiter and Venus. In water element, second chakra, creativity, sexuality, your watery parts. Third chakra, Mars, fire element. Fire element can go any way. It can be explosive anger, and it can be warmth of presence, warmth of the heart. We get to actually choose, but it doesn't mean that we necessarily have the Shakti at the moment to make that choice embodied in our life. You know what I mean? So I may want to be less explosive anger and more warmth of presence, yet I may not be able to embody that yet as much as I would like to, so therefore I need to learn how to do it. That's all. And that's the learning alchemy, is how do you, and I'm just saying alchemy is just one way of describing it, but it's a really cool way of understanding it and thinking about it, because it's very practical. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody's trying to feel loved. Everyone wants to know what is real and to feel what is real and not to feel confused. We want to feel connected. And so that's all it means with alchemy. It's just how do you not deny the suffering of life and treat it as a negative, but actually be able to embrace it. Not embrace it in meaning you're now trying to make your suffering positive. That creates more like, my feeling is that creates more like spiritual facade, when everything has to be positive all the time. No, some things suck, but they just relatively suck. Nothing ultimately sucks. And so to be able to kind of dance between relative and ultimate, relative and absolute, you could say ultimate, you could say absolute, you could say supreme. Choose the semantic that makes sense to the mind. But things are relatively good. It's relatively good to have a new relationship. It's relatively bad for a relationship to fall apart. But it also could be relatively good for a relationship to fall apart. So these things are not ultimates. They're not absolutes. Money comes, money goes. It's really sunny and warm, and like you can just be outside so comfortably, but then it gets cold and rainy. So cold and rainy is bad if you want to be outside in your bathing suit. But it's good if you want to get inside and be cozy. So just in the same way, when difficult things are happening in our lifetime, and we have different seasons that bring great challenges on, they're not innately negative. Yes, it's not saying it doesn't suck, that we stay human. That's part of the compassion, is to be like, this feels lousy. And that inside of that feeling of feeling lousy, there's wisdom there. But when we think we shouldn't ever feel lousy, we can't get to the wisdom that's inside that lousy.